Good evening. So we just wait for 2 more minutes and then start. Okay, let's start. So has everyone watched the lectures of week 10?
Yeah, sir, I have watched.
Okay, what about others?
Yes, sir, I too have watched.
I also.
Okay. So what we'll do is I'll quickly cover some of the concepts needed, and then we can, if we have time, we will move to the programming assignment. All right, so the week 10 will be about object-oriented programming, one of the important programming paradigms, right? So paradigm meaning some framework that is used by coders to, frame their logic or try to approach a problem. So best way would, as you would have seen, is through examples, right? So what exactly is happening in the case of object-oriented programming is this, right? So we can think about the scenario of having hall tickets, right? So
Excuse me, sir.
yeah,
Sir, what is the syllabus for quiz 2 exam?
I'll come to that in the end, right? So I'll just finish this some important things and then I'll come to that.
Okay.
So let's take the case of hall tickets. So if you think about a hall ticket, there are several students, right? So each of you has a hall ticket in your possession. So typically, what all things are there on a hall ticket? So what do you see on a hall ticket?
Roll number.
Sir, roll number,
name,
name,
DOB.
date of birth.
Okay, so we have name, DOB, roll number,
student ID,
right?
Subject name.
Subject name, right? So let's say you also have address, right? So Just adding, it may not be the ideal hall ticket. So now the interesting thing is that each one of you has a different hall ticket, right? So some of these fields could be the same. So it is quite likely that you go by the birthday paradox, right? So two of you have the same date of birth, assuming only we consider the number in the year and not the the entire date of birth. But typically you will find that no two hall tickets are the same, right? At the very least, we know that roll numbers are different, right? So each of these hall tickets is in some sense a unique entity, right? So we'll call each hall ticket an object, right? So each hall ticket is called an object. So what do we mean by an object? You can just think about an object as everyday objects, right? So hall ticket is an object, and cars are objects, buses are objects, right? So anything could possibly be an object. So that is what roughly this object in the object-oriented programming means, right? It's just everyday objects that you can think about at this stage. Now, where we move from this is that, as we have listed here, right, all hall tickets have certain features in common, right? So we could call this features, or another name could be attributes, right, or fields, right? So all these are same. I could call them features, attributes, fields. So if you remember your CT course, I think week 10 in CT was also object-oriented programming. I think we use some kind of similar name, right? So field or something for these entities, right? So that is basically what is called a class, right? So a class is nothing but some kind of a template, right? So that describes objects in general, right? So you have several hall tickets. For each student, you have a hall ticket, but there's something called the hall ticket class, right? Which will be a template that will be used to describe all these hall tickets, right? So it will, you can think about this as, when IIT Madras in the operations team, when they prepare the hall tickets, they'll first create the template, right? So they won't add your name right at the end. So till the end, it will just be a template. Please kindly mute yourselves. If not, I'll have to mute everyone. Yeah. So that is how you have to think about hall tickets, objects and classes. So before we go any further, let's just put this into action and see what it is. So the keyword that I use to define this class, right, or this template is class followed by name of the class. So here I would say the name of the class is hall ticket. Okay. And I'll write certain things which may not be immediately apparent if you have not watched the lectures. So stick with me for some time. So what are all the attributes that this hall ticket has? It has a name, it has a roll number, and let us say subject, right? So okay, so these are the three attributes that this hall ticket is having. Now, so far it's only a template, but we need some way to turn it into an object, right? So there are so many students and each one should have his or her own hall ticket, right? So how do we turn it into that? This is the way we do it. Okay, so now you have a very bare bones template for a hall ticket. Right? Just before you start entering your specific names of students, this is how a hall ticket will look like. Okay, so far, does anyone have any questions?
Is it necessary to have all these attributes within the this function, the init?
No, not necessary. We will come to that, right? So for now, it's like very basic class that we are writing. But yeah, it's not necessary that everything has to be within the init function.
Okay, okay.
Okay, so now let's start creating these individual hall tickets, right? So this is a template. Now I am going to start printing these hall tickets for all the students. So let's say you have one.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah.
Sir, in this case, I understand that the template will be hall ticket, and each individual student will be means hall ticket of the student will be treated as an object, right, sir?
Yeah.
And in this case, here you are writing the function, means what we have earlier, and means after the class, it will be the function we have to define like that.
Yeah, so I will come to that. So once I finish one example, it will become clear.
Okay, fine, sir. Okay.
Right. So let's say I want to print one hall ticket for a student named Arun, let's say.
Excuse me, sir.
One second.
Sir.
I'll just finish this example and I'll take questions. Okay, so this is how I'll create the hall ticket. So it will be 21F1, whatever. So I don't know the exact roll numbers. Subject, let's say this is a hall ticket for Max 1. Okay. So this is the object. So we call this an object, right? So each student has his or her own hall ticket, and therefore this is how I create one object based on this particular template, right? So let's take another hall ticket, another object. So it could be, say, Aruna and 21F1 100, whatever, right? So maybe for, say, stats 2. Okay, so these are objects. Okay, now you can ask related question. Yeah.
So what is this function init is doing here? Can't we use any other function to define the same thing?
Yeah, so this init function, we are going to come to that, right? So we have finished with let me just focus on the right side. We are done with the basic motivating example and what objects are and what classes are. Now we come to, I'll come to the function in a while. First, I'll attributes and methods, I think we already know, right? So methods we don't know, I'll come to that. So these are all attributes. Okay, name, roll number, subject are all attributes of the class. And init is actually called a method. So init is a method, and it's a special method. So
Sir, I have like
and it's called a constructor.
So sir, it is a special method. We can't change it. We can't rename it, the function.
No. So this has to be called init for the following reason, right? So the role of init is to initialize the object, right? So the role of init is to initialize the object with these attributes. I mean, the init can do several other things also, but how do I? So init is like, so when you are printing the hall ticket, right? When it actually goes through the printing press and you engrave your name, roll number, and subject, that process is actually that is what this init is doing. This engraving process is what init is in this analogy.
So it's preparing a template.
So it is filling the template. The template is already there. It's prepared. So you could think of the class, the entire class is the template. Init is like filling it with something to give form to that particular template and making it into an object.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so you could actually do away with the init also. If you do away with the init, and you could define it using say any other function, but we'll come to that. That is like the second stage of methods.
So, sir, we can use a user-defined function also, right? Whatever we want.
Yeah, whatever you want, but they'll all be, see, a function within a class is called a method. So whenever you refer to a function of the class, you always call it a method.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the terminology. So attributes and methods. Methods are nothing but functions defined for a class. Okay, so for example, so this will become clear if we actually take up some sensible method which immediately makes sense, which is, say, update subject. Okay, so what I want to do is that I have prepared a hall ticket with, say, some subject max 1, but now just before 2 days before the exam, someone actually tells me that no, I want to write the exam for some other subject. So you have to update the subject. For that, I have some method called update subject. So here what you do is you update your subject attribute, okay, with this new subject. So how do you update it? So that's the whole point. Let's say Aruna wants to write, say, Python. Currently she has been enrolled for stats 2. So what we'll do is we will call the method using the object. So this is called calling the method using the object. So Aruna dot update subject with the new subject name, let's say Python. Okay, so this is what it means to call a method.
Aruna is object, right?
Aruna is an object, and that object has 3 attributes: name, roll number, subject. Initially it was stats 2, but now you want to update it to Python. So this is how you update it. Of course, you could do it directly also, but this is how it's usually done.
So Python would be attribute, right?
Attribute means variable within the class, right?
Just give me 1 second. 1 second. Yeah, sorry, someone was asking something.
Yeah, sir. So here Python would be the this attribute, right?
Here, no, Python will not be an attribute. Python will be a value that an attribute is assigned. So attributes are only these things. See, attribute is nothing but a variable. That's, at the end of the day, it's a variable. So name, roll number, subject are variables, but these are all variables that are associated with an object of the class, right? See, these are all variables associated with objects.
So Python is a parameter.
You could call it that way. You could call it an argument parameter, but I would say it's the value that an attribute takes in this case.
Sir, actually, I'm a little confused between object and attributes. Sir, here, like
All tickets are objects. Your name, roll number, subject are all attributes.
okay.
Sir, one doubt, sir.
Hall ticket is also the class, right? Sir, we have defining as class.
Yeah, hall ticket is the class, but hall tickets are objects.
Excuse me,
Sir,
sir.
self is also an attribute, sir.
Okay. So self is not really an attribute. So self is a special keyword. Okay. So I hope you all know what keywords are. So all these specially reserved words in Python are keywords. Say for, while, def are all keywords. In that list, self is an important keyword. So what does self refer to? That we'll have to see with an example. So I will just before we go to self, we'll do some basic things with this, right? With this example. Yeah, one second. I'll just finish this, some basic things that will clear some doubts. So if you run this, and how do we first of all, how do we access these objects? So Arun dot name, right? So object name of the object dot attribute, right? That is the syntax. So likewise, you can do Arun dot roll number, and that would give you the corresponding roll number. Likewise, Arun dot subject will give you the corresponding value that attribute takes. Okay, so this is how you access the methods and attributes that belong to a class.
So can we say that classes contains object and object contains attributes?
Okay, classes. So see, the way to look at it is not classes contains objects, but an object is so an object, how do I say put it? It belongs to a class. I mean, see, all that's why the best keywords to use here are templates or blueprints, right? So for example, you have a blueprint for a house that you are constructing. The house is an exact, real life replica of the blueprint, right? So whatever is there in the blueprint, that gets realized in the house. So you could have several houses that follow the same blueprint but with minor variations, right? So all these houses have the same blueprint, and that blueprint is what we call this class. So yeah, house, how that kind of a class would be a class house.
House is object, no, sir. House is object and blueprint is a class.
No. So see, there is nothing called a class. I mean, you can't call. See, the class is the blueprint, but in this analogy, the class will be house, and
Right.
and I would call, say, I would have number of rooms, and say with slightly varying blueprint, right, or squares in the area of the house, number of rooms. So these things will become attributes of the house.
Correct.
So in computation also,
sir, I have a doubt, sir. If we
Yeah.
use update subject, so if we now call Aruna dot subject, it will print let's say stats 2, right?
It won't print. It will update this. If I do Aruna dot update subject.
No, not update subject, sir. We have done already, right? We have called it, right? We didn't call it, right?
No, we haven't called it. So if I call it with Python, it will update the subject. That's all. It won't print in.
No, if you now print Aruna dot subject, what will be printed?
Yeah, it will print the updated.
Python, yes.
so in computational thinking also, we have like one student is a class, and all the information regarding that student, that is the name, roll number, as the objects. So can't we say, like, using this concept also, that the object is contained in that particular class?
Object is contained. Okay, so see, as long as you don't treat it like a list containing elements, it's fine. So see, a list contains several objects, right? So I mean several elements. So it is not that kind of a containment. So it is more of so you understand the difference between. I hope you're not referring to that. See, I can say.
So objects have information regarding the classes, no? So we can say that it is like contained in that.
Okay, I am a bit. I'm not in favor of using the word contain. See, for example, list contains certain numbers, right? So you could have a list of numbers. So I could say list contains these numbers, but I wouldn't say a class contains objects. I could say the class is a template that is used to create objects. Okay, so I am more comfortable with that, and yeah,
Yeah.
but as
So we
yeah,
can say that Arun is a object belonging to hall ticket class.
yeah, that is the most appropriate way of putting it. Okay, but as, yeah.
Is it possible that the object can draws methods from two different classes?
Yeah, all that is possible, but we won't explore that in this course. It is like a basic thing. So it's a basic introduction to object-oriented programming. So we will stick to very simple single classes.
Okay.
Sir, now may I ask my doubts?
Yeah.
Well, sir, so class, as we discussed, that blueprint, just an analogy. So blueprint is class, right? And house is object. Okay.
Right.
And sir, whatever variables we are creating inside the object, these are called attributes.
Right.
Okay, so how to create that object and how to create an object from class, sir?
Right. Okay. So this is how you create it. Right. So you use the name of, to create an object, you use the name of the class.
Okay.
And that's it. Actually, that itself is enough. So I'll write a simple class, right, which is bare bones. Say, I mean, now we are ready to go for that. So some say random class. Okay, I'm just calling it random. Now, this is the simplest class that you could write. And I could say an object obj is, this is an object of this class.
Random class, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And sir, when we create a variable inside a class, then those are called attributes, right?
Yeah.
And how to create functions within the object? Sorry, within the class. How to create functions within the
yeah.
class?
So functions within the class are created like usual functions. Say add numbers, whatever, right? So only thing is that the first argument of these functions take on a special name and they are called methods. You should make sure that they are always self, and there's a reason for that. Okay, so the reason is self, the keyword self points to the object that is actually calling that function. Okay, so let me take this with I think we have some calculator thing. I don't know whether it is a graded assignment or is it graded assignment. Okay, so this is graded assignment. How do I need that example actually. Okay, so let me take the example of let's say, okay, someone is talking about cars there. Let's say cars, right, or car. So let's say you have a car and I want to increase the speed by some value, say new speed. Okay, so the car, assume that it has only one attribute and I define it initially as speed. Okay, so now this is a very bare bones object, right? Say this is some car. Okay, now the way I create an object is I call car, but in this case I have what is called a constructor method, right? Constructor defined. So whenever you see a constructor, if you just let's just run this and see what happens. So you see this error, right? There is a type error. It's saying init missing one required argument, speed. So whenever you call capital CAR, it will immediately look for a constructor. So I will write it down here. So if your constructor is defined, then calling car is equivalent to calling this function. Okay, please understand this because this is important. If you don't understand this, you will not know how to create objects. So is this clear to everyone what's happening here? Why this error is coming up?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Because
Sir,
the speed is
does
so
that
big.
mean it calls both, calls both the functions, the init and the increase speed also?
No, only init. So init that's why it's a special function. So whenever you use the name of the class and have this open and close brackets, then immediately it goes and calls this function.
So then what function it is getting created in line number 3? What function is getting created in line number 3? Like def, then init, self, speed. So are we creating two functions within this class car, or we are creating only one function?
There are two functions that you are writing here.
Okay.
And this function is called init. So it's okay. No, we should call all these functions methods. So this method is called init, and there's a special name for it. It's a constructor. So the constructor is something that constructs, right? So it is helping you construct or initialize this object.
So are we saying that whenever we are creating an object, creating a class, and we are creating a method inside it, so first method will be init method, first method will be init method? Are we saying that?
Yeah, it should always be init method. Of course, you can write without init also. Yeah, there is no harm in skipping the init method, but general practice, if you look at any piece of industry level code, every class will have one init method. It should have ideally.
And then what is the self dot speed? Then assignment operator speed.
So here this is where you have to understand what self means. So first of all, you initialize it with say 20 kmph or something like that. Now this value 20 will be assigned to this particular object's attribute speed. So this particular car is now moving at 20 kilometers per hour. If you don't use self.speed, and if you call it, okay, this might be confusing. So I'll just rename it. I'll say init speed. Okay. If you do this, then there is no way of initializing this object with the speed. I need this self dot. So self dot is saying, okay, for my car that I am looking at, my car is object, right? So, or let's say call it Honda, someone called it. For this Honda car, it has to move at 20 kmph, right? So I need this class to know that this particular car is moving at 20 kmph. So I need this self dot because of that.
Is it mandatory to always use the self in the first argument?
Yeah, because there's a reason for that. See, let's see what happens when I update the speed of the car. I increase the speed of the car to say 30. Okay, so if you check the speed now, it is okay. Why did the call it with self dot increase speed? That's wrong, right? I have to increase the speed. Speed is the attribute and not self dot speed. So if you check the speed now, it is 30, right? So notice that there are how many arguments does this this method have?
2, self and new speed.
Okay, but why is there no error being thrown when you only called it with one attribute?
Yeah, it's only one attribute, I think.
Right, but as a function, right, if you look at it as a standalone function, it has
Yes.
two arguments, right?
As a layman, I am a first time learner. I will say there are two arguments only. I am not sitting with any past experience. So
Okay.
for me, there are two arguments: self and new speed.
Okay, so what is happening is this function call is equivalent to this call, right? So you're actually calling car dot increase speed, and you are passing Honda, the object, and the new speed. Okay, so this is what is happening when you call object dot method. It is actually calling class dot method, and it is passing the current object Honda and the argument speed. Okay, that is why this Honda object speed gets updated to 30 and not any other object speed.
Sir, initially you assigned that Honda speed as a 20, right, sir, in this first init as per.
Yeah.
And then in the next line you have written Honda dot increase speed. So in there, yeah, the new speed is updated. And when we call that Honda dot speed, then the updated value is displaying in the console.
Right.
Okay.
So, sir, if you just keep the Honda as it is and take another car name like Maruti something is equal to car of with some speed. So is it, so that will be again like all those things apply to Maruti, right?
Yeah, so Maruti is now a separate car, a separate object. So let's put Maruti right after Honda, and I am increasing. Let's try both methods. So I'm increasing the speed of Honda to 30. Okay. So let's now see what happens to both the cars. So Honda dot speed is now 30. Maruti speed remains at 50, right? It is not altered.
Yeah.
Okay, so this
So
is
that
important.
means self is like every like Honda and Maruti, that whatever you apply.
Yeah, so self corresponds to
the object names.
yeah,
Yeah.
the current object.
Yes, yes.
Whatever object you use to call the method, it is that object that self is pointing to.
So here, so I have a query, sir, in the 14th line.
Yeah.
So you call the increase speed method or rather function with the car directly from car, which is the class. Class is calling the increase speed method, and then I'm passing the object 30. Will it work?
Yeah.
I mean, like I was just a bit confused. I thought only through an object you can call increase speed, but
Yeah.
here you're calling with the class and
Yeah.
then passing an object. So will this update Honda's speed to 30?
Yeah. So yeah, it will, right? So if you look at
if you type let's say print Honda dot speed, what will we get?
30.
Okay. So
yeah,
you can do that way also, is it?
But don't use this. This is just I just use this for illustration, just to show
Okay.
what the self
Okay.
means. But this is not recommended practice.
So you suggest using the object, right?
Yeah, only the object. So we should interact with the methods and the attributes only through the object. That is the window for us.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Can I ask one question, please?
Yeah.
In this init method, if you don't pass this initial speed, if we write init self and then initialize this self dot speed is init speed, will it work now? Will it work then?
No, right? Because you.
If we yes, and this is defined that is self dot speed is init speed.
Yeah, but this won't work, right? Because your interpreter will ask you where have you defined init speed? It's like any other function, right?
So all the attributes has to be put inside this init function, no?
Yeah, as arguments you have to pass them.
Okay. All the attributes have to pass.
Sir,
yeah.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, please.
So in this function define init, we are initializing the value, or we are storing the init speed into the self speed, and in this increase speed, we are updating the value. And sir, after that, from line number 10, what are we doing? Like Honda equals to car of 20. What is this thing?
We are creating objects, right? So these are different cars, and we are just creating objects here.
So what does this car 20, what does this mean that gets stored to Honda?
Car 20 means, as I said before, you will, whenever you call thing, your constructor will get called, and the value of 20 is the init speed. So that will be passed to this, and your speed will get set to init speed.
Okay, so both of these 20 and 50 are init speed. They are not updated yet.
These are speeds of two different objects, so two different cars.
But sir, both are init, no?
Yeah, but they correspond to different objects.
Yeah, I understand.
Sir, I did
Sir,
a small
here
segment,
in
sir.
yeah, in the increase underscore speed, sir, function. So if
Yeah.
we don't give self here and just pass that what you say, the how you showed it, right? Honda dot the below one, the earlier one, right, sir? Honda dot. So if
Yeah.
we pass that value, will it work or how it is? Or
No, just that you, I mean, forget about that, right? So that is just for illustration. If you want to update, if you want to call a method, then just use object name dot whatever speed you want to update.
okay. So sir, instead of self dot speed, it is all it is equivalent to this init underscore speed, sir. So okay, like can we put it init underscore speed is equal to new underscore speed or how it is? Or
No, right? You want to initialize this speed to this car's speed. You want to start your car or create a car object that is currently having this speed to start with. So this has to go to the right. This will have to be in the left.
okay. So self dot speed is working as a variable, I think, right, sir?
Yeah, attributes are all variables. They are not anything different.
I have just a small doubt.
Yeah.
So can you go to practice assignment question number 6? There you see in this init definition, they have the practice assignments, practice, not this, that is graded, that is not programming assignment, that other assignment.
Okay.
Where is that? Yes, practice assignment. Question number 6, sir. Yes. Just see the definition of init. This is question on just above it. Yes.
This employee thing.
No. This is
Rational is a class. That
yes. Just see. Self dot number is, they have passed only two attribute, number and then they have self dot reduce. What is this self dot reduce is doing? They have not passed this in this.
So they are calling this method reduce.
Okay. So within init they are calling the method. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Sir, we are calling function before defining.
Okay, that's a good point, but it's not. You shouldn't look at it that way. So you have.
But sir, in graded assignment 2, there was something like this. They have initialized on empty list, and then they have used. So okay, that was a graded part. So let us not discuss that.
Yeah. So where were
Sir, I have
we?
a question.
Yeah.
Sir, in that the first function init, can we? So it's not mandatory to pass another argument, right? Like initial speed, we can also simply define self dot speed. If you want a default speed, we can simply put a like 60, self dot speed equal to 60. That would work, right?
Yeah. So you could do something like 60, and then you don't need to call, say.
We can also define in the line number 5, right? We can simply put equal to 60, or that won't work.
Yeah, that will also work. So you don't. The argument need not necessarily be there, but if you remove this So if you remove this, there will be no way to create the object with the speed that you want. Like
I'm talking about a scenario. Say if every car that I'm defining has a default speed now at the start. So in that
then
scenario,
you
we can
you can
okay.
just say 60 and remove this parameter altogether.
Okay. And one more thing that the init function, that underscore at the start and end, it's default, right? That's the syntax. We did not change anything.
Yeah. You in fact you shouldn't, right? So these are called dunder methods in Python. So you can read more about them. So there should be some proper Stack Overflow.
Sir, there are many methods like this symbol, like to underscore and then underscore.
Right. Yeah, there are quite a few of them.
So, sir, in this case where we are not initializing, like is in that init one, we are not initializing. So, if you are not passing any value, will that work here? Like Honda is equal to car.
Yeah, it'll work, right?
It will take the
that,
default 61, right?
Yeah, it is just that everything will be 60. Right?
But if you want to override, then you have to pass any value, right? So it will override that.
Yeah, you have to pass, or what you can do is you can update it directly. I mean, you could just say car.speed equal to 200, right? And Honda.speed, if you try it, it will now be 200. Right? So that is the important other part, is that you can update the attributes outside the methods also.
So, but here, sir, first we need to put this, right? Honda is equal to car bracket, and then Honda speed is equal to 200, right?
Yeah. So this has to be there. So you have to have an object before you can. Yeah. So you have to have an object first. So always object comes first, and then you can use whatever you want. So update follows this step.
No, sir, my question was that to execute line number 15, right? So 14 is mandatory, right? We have to assign this Honda is equal to car, this one, right?
Yeah, that's what I said, right? So object creation has to happen first. Only then you can update the attributes.
Line number 14 basically creates an object.
Yeah, it creates an object of the car class.
Okay. And to get the value or some update, or if we want to display also, sir, we have to attach this object with this function, right?
Display, sorry?
If you want to even display or get the value, sir, we have to attach this object with the function, right?
Yeah. So you have to, I mean, that's preferable. So you have to, it would be nice if you can write something like display and say print self.speed, or say like the car is moving at, right? Something like this would be good. And if you do Honda.display, it should print that particular value.
If we use like earlier along with the self in the init method constructor, let's say we use initial speed equal to 50.
Hello, sorry, I didn't get the question.
I was saying now, initially when we use none along with self in init method, self and initial speed, so initial speed equal to 16.
Okay.
So which is the initialization interval method, it's in the function itself. Then when we create an instance, let's say Honda car, and then print Honda.speed, will it take the default value? Yes,
so
and remove the self.speed in the line number 6.
Yeah, this will work like any other default function with the default arguments.
No, sir. I'm saying you just comment the line 6. Comment the
Okay.
line 6. Yes, sir. Comment the line 6. Now, if I call Honda dot speed, I'm sorry, Honda dot initial speed, will it give me some output?
No, it won't. It will throw an error because init speed is not an attribute of the Honda object.
Why we put initial speed in init methods, huh? With the default value?
That is so that even if you don't provide an explicit argument, it will initialize the speed to 60.
Okay, so if we comment self dot speed, it will give an error. When we try to, if we try to create an object itself, it will give an error, I think, right? Huh?
Yeah, if you comment out, I mean, not really. If you this
Yes,
will
sir.
work.
Now, can we run now?
Yeah, this will work because I mean this for, and if you comment out 16 also, it will work. But if you uncomment 16, it will throw an error. So if you uncomment 16, it will ask you what is this speed.
If we can run only line 15, no,
It won't throw an error.
Okay, okay, it will not throw an error if we have Honda equal to car and so.
Yeah, it won't throw any error.
Sir, just one doubt. Previously you showed it, right, sir? We removed init underscore speed. Just self was there, and in the down 15 or like 16, we were calling it right Honda dot speed, right?
Yeah.
So that speed is, sir, like how the first one, the fourth line initialization, or it is just the 11th which we have done it. So.
See, now it is only whatever is happening at line 6. But if I call Honda dot increase speed, then yeah.
Earlier, sir, earlier we removed it init underscore speed is equal to 60, right? Just one argument was there, self. Okay, and down we were calling it like Honda dot speed, right, sir?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So in that case, sir, how one will know that this like object is attached to that attribute? Like it's because nowhere, sir, we were mentioning right there that is speed because in the argument it was just self, right? There was no speed. So how one will know, right, which object is attached to the attribute speed?
Self, right? Self dot speed we had.
Okay.
So the self only ties the argument to that attribute. Self dot speed is the object's attribute.
Okay.
Sir, are we going to study more render methods in coming week?
Mostly not. No, we won't be. So this is like, see, this is like we have hit the end of the course nearly. So week 11 is there, but week 11 will not be very heavy.
So how to explore those render methods, because there are quite a lot while exploring. So there are quite a lot. So
yeah, so there is no way you can exhaust everything. You can depending on your interest and use case, you'll have to now start exploring other sources.
okay.
Mr. Karthik, coming back to this only.
Yeah.
Like one class, this can be class to like one object. This can be class for another class. Like this car is the class here.
Yeah.
And this can be means it's a bigger class. Like parent class can be automobile, right?
Yeah.
Then under this there can be one brand, that can be another class.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. Then within car also there might be certain things. For example, electronics of a car, this can be one class. Wheels, brake system, they can be another class, right?
Right. Yeah.
And how it will be called in that case? Like nested something?
So that is a separate concept, right? So that is what is called inheritance. So if you look at the lectures, one of the later lectures will discuss that. So
okay.
So the way that works is, once you define a particular class, you have to define this is called the parent class or base class. So this is like the parent, and then you have children for this particular parent. So you have a child, say electronic,
Yeah.
and you call it, you define it this way, right? So electronic is a child of car. And then you can do the same thing, right? So you could have, I mean, if you don't define any init, I think it will just reuse the init of this particular parent class, and you could just say update the recharge, right? So I mean, I don't know what will happen inside recharge, but say some operation happens, and so basically you could have say some kind of a Tesla, right, as electronic going at say 120, and you just say print. I'll just say, right, and I would say Tesla dot recharge.
Okay.
So Honda. So let's get rid of Honda. So the nice thing is the car is moving at 120 and it has been recharged. Right. So the idea of this inheritance, right, and this thing is called inheritance, is you have this hierarchy of parent child, and you don't want to rewrite the class. You don't want to rewrite a new class. So for example, all electronic cars are cars, as you mentioned. So and they all have speed, right? So speed is something that is common to all cars, not just electronic cars or those that run on petrol or diesel, right? So I don't want to redefine this whole self dot speed is init speed, and I don't want to define a new, again, the same method called increase speed. So what I want to do is I want to inherit these things. I want to, just like a child inherits, say, by heredity, certain features from parents. In the same way, a child class will inherit the methods and the attributes of the parent class.
Okay.
Okay, so there are, like, you could read the this inheritance is discussed in the third lesson of the textbook. So what exactly inheritance is, and what it exactly does.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Sir,
One more.
in recharge you have written, is it self or you are testing that it will work or not?
Oh, okay.
But still it worked.
Yeah, that's a good point. And how did this work? Okay, so see, the reason it worked is, see, even if I had called it CFL and I had, say, I did something like this, I think it will still work. Okay, so I thought self was keyword in Python, but apparently self keyword in Python. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. So I stand corrected. So self is merely a convention. Okay, so it is not a keyword.
Even in init we can put anything at the start.
Yeah, it turns out we can put anything. So see, look at this, right? So you could give the first parameter of your method any name you want, but you're strongly advised to stick to the convention of calling it self, and we'll also do the same. But this is new. I mean, I also thought this was I thought this was a keyword, and it turns out it is not.
So how the recharge got filtered, sir?
Sorry?
All the recharge filtered out. Now, how did we get the recharge filtered?
How did we?
Recharge, print recharge. When when we call the Tesla electronic 120, which is inherited class, so it's automatically calling the init of the car class, right?
It is automatically calling the init of the car class. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Then 120 is getting passed, and then we are printing. But how this recharge also got printed?
That is because I called recharge. I wanted to recharge my car, so I called the method of the class of the object.
Tesla dot recharge only is printing the recharge, right? Not the value.
Yeah, not the so this particular thing, right? So for example, I define a Honda car, right, which is, let's say, non-electric. So it's just a car, and if I happen to call Honda dot recharge, that will throw an error, right? So because car does not have recharge, only electronic or electric car. Okay, only electric cars have this idea of recharge. Okay, so I haven't defined recharge for the parent. So it's like children can inherit from parents, but for very valid reasons, the attributes of the child will not be inherited by the parents, or methods of the child will not be. You can't access the method of a child if you are using an object of the parent class.
Yes.
Yes, sir. And sir, in the lecture somewhere they defined, right? So within the class we can define one object, and that object can be used any place, right? Something I
Yeah,
don't
not
remember
object.
exactly, but
We can define one attribute that belongs to the class in general.
yeah.
Yeah. So that is called a class attribute.
Okay. So my question is actually, sir, in which scenario we will use that, and like.
Okay, so
like
I am also not very sure, right? So see, this one scenario which we have given is, you notice the questions. Do we have any place where we have used? So for example, you look at this. So here we have used count. So every time you okay, this is a subclass, so this is derived from product. Let's get rid of all that, and let's just say this is all book is, right? So let's say you have Harry Potter one, right? HP1 is book of HP1, price is 500, author is JKR, it's fiction, right? So when I create one object, what is this? Object.image, it takes exactly one argument.
Sir, I think title is missing.
Oh, okay. No, the super. I forgot to remove the super. We'll come to super later. It's not very important. So let's create the second book. Right? Okay. So now I have created two books, and let's say you are library. You are a member of a library which is actually maintaining a database of books that are being borrowed by the users. So or let's say you are a publisher who's printing these books, then you would like to keep count of the total number of books that are published, right? So this instance, this attribute, right, this is called a class attribute, and it is common to all objects, right? It belongs to the class. It is not tied to any one object.
Count, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
So count is not tied to any one object. It belongs to the class. So if I now print book.count, notice the difference. I'm not using HP1 or HP2.count. I'm using book.count. Book.count will tell me how many books I have printed. Rather, it will tell me how many objects of the class book I have created. So I have created two objects here, two books. Therefore, count is 2. So I notice that I'm updating count here.
So here we have only created the object HP1, HP2, right? We have not called the function. Then how come it is counting? How come it is incrementing the count variable?
Because when you create the object, the constructor gets called, right? This is the first thing that we talked about. Whenever you call the class, whenever you create an object, it will immediately go and look for init function, init method, and it will execute that.
So, but book.count is there, right, sir? In that it is incrementing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like here count is inbuilt variable. So we have studied many sequences, right? Like list, string and all. So do they have any inbuilt variable?
Which one?
Like count here is inbuilt variable, right? Or attribute. Count is attribute of class book, right?
Class book, yeah.
So we have studied many sequences like list, string, set, right?
Right,
so
right.
do they have any inbuilt attribute?
Like you mean list, string? Do you asking whether they have attributes?
Any inbuilt attributes like predefined attributes?
Yeah, so they have methods certainly. So for example,
methods we have studied. What about attribute? Do they have attribute also?
Attributes for okay. Yes, I think they have. So for example, functions, right? So function is also treated as an object in Python. So everything is an object in Python. So if you take
everything is object or everything is class?
I mean, okay, so they're all
yeah. It's a bit confusing.
Yeah, I mean everything is you generally you will say everything is an object in Python. So belonging to a particular, say not belonging again. So which are defined from a particular class, you could say, right? Yes. So for example, all functions are. So if you type, let's define this function. Compute square of x, right? So
return x into answer.
Right. So if I type the if I type the type of the function, so if I type of square, you will see that the class this belongs to, or rather this is the template corresponding to this object. So square is the object,
function class,
right? And the class that it is an object of is function. So square has this attribute, the doc string, right? So this is the doc string, which you see, which you have been seeing from week 5. Every function has this doc string. So this doc string is an attribute of this function object square. Okay, so this is one example of whatever objects that we have been studying so far, lists.
And this doc function is that magic method, huh?
This is one of the dunder.
Method. Sorry, dunder method. Yes.
I mean, this is not a dunder method, but it's just a variable.
So square is here, sir. The what you say, object only, right?
It's an object. Square is an object of function class.
Okay.
And sir, I had a doubt in previous, right, which you explained. So my doubt was, suppose we created count there, right, in just below the class. So creating the class what you say attribute just below the class, and defining, like suppose in it inside we can give one more this attribute count, right? Then also it will work, right, sir?
Sorry, within Init, I didn't get the question.
So count we have defined just below the class, right, sir?
Count we have defined here.
This class attribute count. Okay.
Yeah,
My question is, suppose I am defining in the init one, right? One more attribute I can take count after gener or something.
I am sorry, not able to hear.
Hello.
There is count does not belong to object attribute.
Count is called a class attribute. It is, you can access count from the objects. So for example, you can access count this way. You cannot update count. I mean, if you try to update count, you will not be able to update the class attribute. So see, this is kind of slightly technical. I mean, unnecessarily technical at this stage. I mean, it's good to know this. It is there in the textbook also, but it may be confusing at this stage. Okay, so you can.
My confusion was, sir, that what is the difference if we are creating under a class and difference if we are creating this under the init one?
Under init, okay, that is valid. So see, when you create a class attribute, it can be accessed by every object of that class, right? And it is common to all objects. So for example, if I say hp1.count, I can say hp2.count, whereas hp1 dot title is not the okay, hp1 dot, okay, not.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
If we define that count as a global inside the def, so will that work instead of using that book.count?
Global, I am not sure. So, but why do you want to do that?
See, we are here we are taking that variable with the class name, right? But if there is a method like if we are defining any variable outside any function, then we can use that variable inside the function using the global.
Correct, but I don't want to tie up count with every function in my code, right? I want to tie up count only with the class book.
Exactly. So this is inside the class, but as count variable is outside the function, right? Def. So that's why I'm saying that.
No. So if we do that, then I'll get into other kinds of problems. So if I do global count, and now what I can do is I can do this, right? I can do count plus equal to 1.
No, we will define that count outside the function, but use as a global inside the function, right?
You can
so
use
it will
it, but yeah.
So then it will get update for the whole class, no? If
No, right?
for rest of the methods as well inside that class.
It will get updated for the entire program. So I don't want that, right? So for example, if I do what? So if I do this, right? So I guess this should be global here also.
No, sir. Just define that count before that def, na? You deleted that row. In row number 3, insert a row between 2 and 3, right? So, yeah.
Okay.
Right. Now, if you just define that, yeah, global count, then yeah, first global is enough only. Yeah.
No, see, I get what you're saying, but the only problem with having this as global is it will be global for the program, right? I want to tie this up with only my class. It will no longer be a method of the class. It will be a variable that is shared by the whole code.
Is it so? Because I guess global will work within the class only.
No, right? So global is a global variable, right? So I haven't used global variables that much. So this is clearly wrong.
Global, it should be out of the function, right? It should be out of the method. It should be
Yeah,
like
it is
line number 10 or somewhere.
No. One second. So
if we can write the global in the line number 3.
Just a second. Right. So I think we have discussed this here. Okay, so let's take this example first before we go to this, that we understand. So let me copy this. Okay, so now this I have defined it as global, and I can modify X wherever I want, whether I'm in a class or I am inside some other function. So that is the use of global variables, right? It is not tied to a particular class. It is, and the moment you say something is global, it becomes global for the entire program.
Okay.
Sir, my doubt was, sir, that if we defined, do not define line 4, right? And we give in the init one after self or somewhere the count. Okay.
Init one.
In defining init self after there, we can give one the count or the last, wherever it is.
Okay. What do you want to give?
Count, sir. Count in the after author we can give where we are defining the attributes, right? Others.
Yeah, but it will be an attribute for the object, right? It won't be an attribute for the class.
So, but does it will make any difference, or which you just book dot count you put, right? So it will throw error, or how it is, sir?
Yeah. So let's try what you are saying. So I'll do this, and I'll try to access.
You need to pass also, sir.
Right.
Sir,
so
in
So
there also you have to define it, right, sir?
Within the parenthesis. Within the parenthesis.
Yeah.
Def init. Within the
Init
parenthesis.
one, sir.
No. See, I mean,
There
here
we have
I'm
to-
saying it's count. I'm setting it to 0, right? It doesn't make.
Okay.
So see, book count is not a class attribute. It's an object attribute. So it is an attribute of only HP1 and HP2. It cannot become an attribute of the class in general. So that is why I define count here.
And sir, if we call HP1 dot count, then if we call HP1 dot count,
then it will work, right, sir?
If you call HP1 dot count with the previous code, it will work. But that is not my point, right? I don't want count associated with a particular object. I want count to be associated with the entire class. Yeah, see, as I said, this is like a very minor technical point. Don't worry too much about the class variables.
Okay. So, sir, my question, suppose, sir, the usage I am actually, so suppose if we want to count the number of titles or number of authors or number of genre, like how we can achieve with this, like what we can do the modification to count it. Suppose we want to count the number of titles.
That was the initial code, right? So you have count equal to 0 and you have book dot count plus equal to 1. So every time it creates you create a new object, book dot count will get updated.
Okay.
So just a small clarification, sir.
Yeah.
What will be the syllabus for OPP2, sir? Whether week 1 to 11 or week 1 to 8? What will be the syllabus?
It will be mostly entire syllabus. So see, as I said, week 11 is not very heavy. So it will be full 12 weeks.
And so for quiz 2, what will be the syllabus?
There is no quiz 2 for Python alone. Yeah.
OPP2, we mean OPP2.
Yeah, that I just told, right? OPP2 will be entire syllabus.
So on 13 March, we are having our quiz, so it will not be for Python.
The
it's not
TCS
for
quiz,
Python.
yeah, will not be for Python. I mean, for Python, it won't be there. For other subjects, it is there.
Okay, for Python, we are, instead of that quiz, we are having one OPP.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so now see, I don't know how many we have. We have seems to be fairly easy.
12.
Yeah. Yeah, so we can even discuss this next session. So this session, I just want to complete the other aspects of this week also, which is Google Colab and NumPy and Matplotlib, right? So these are the other things. So
Actually, sir, in week 10, there is too much to digest regarding OOPS and NumPy and Matplotlib all in the 1 week only.
yeah. So NumPy and Matplotlib will not be there for exam. So we
only for the introduction kind of thing.
it's just only object-oriented programming is there for exam. Okay, so
Okay.
but I just want you all to get started with using what is this collab, right? So the way to do this is you have to head to collab.research.google.com. Okay, so I have pasted the link in the chat. So and just click on a new notebook, right? When you go there, click on a new notebook. Okay, so you will get an interface like this, and okay, so this IPyNB stands for IPython notebook, right? So that is
it similar to Jupyter?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So we need to use. So can we will be using our student ID or the Gmail, our Gmail ID for the collab?
Use that. It's accessible for anyone.
Yeah, you can use anything, but preferable to use student ID for course related activities. Okay, so the idea of collab is very simple. Maybe it's simpler than Replit. You can essentially do the same things that you do on any editor, right? So return x square, right? And then I can call this on some number, right? I can call the function, and this is the entire thing is called a cell. Okay, so I can just click run cell. Okay, so every time you run it for the first time, it will show this message of connecting, right? So it is getting you an instance to run your code. And once it's connected, it will show you the output. Okay, so whatever code you write in Replit, you can do it here also. You can create multiple cells. So for example, you could have some other function defined here, and then you can you can divide your code into multiple parts so that it's well organized, and all these things you can do in Collab.
So indentation we have to do manually, right? Indentation.
No, indentation you don't need to do. It's just like it's a full blown editor. So I didn't click tab, so it will do auto indent and all that it will do.
In my case, it's not happening, sir.
Sorry?
It's not happening in my case, sir.
Then you will have to enable certain preferences. So settings, editor. Show line numbers, show indentation rates. I don't know. I mean, it shows. I mean, it should do indentation or
Okay, let me explore, sir. Let me explore.
Yeah, just try it out. It should happen automatically.
No, it's happening, but you are finding a red underline, but it's indented. Complete code, it will complete it.
Right. So this is basic idea of a cell in Collab. So the nice thing is you can also add text, right? So text or code. There are two types of cells. So all these are called cells. And in text, you can, when you're revising or when you're studying, you can type things out here, right? So this is basic. This is written in basic Markdown. Okay, so you can learn Markdown pretty quickly. It's not very difficult. So you can just describe what you are trying to do. So this code is computing the square of number, right? So you can do all these things. You can all make it bold and styling and all those things will be there. You can also write math equations. Okay, in case you are using it for, say, something computation, mathematical in nature, right? So that is also possible. Okay, so this is basic idea of what collab is. Okay, so the other things that were discussed in this week, NumPy and Matplotlib. Okay, so NumPy you will use extensively in the machine learning courses which come up in the diploma level. So in the course machine learning techniques, right? It'll all be about NumPy. So no NumPy, no machine learning techniques. That is how important this library is, right? So we have observed that some familiarity with this library before coming to that course is very helpful. So I request all of you to start practicing right from now so that you are ready when that course actually starts. Sorry? Yeah. Okay, so I'll just do some basic, we'll just do some basic things to get you started. The nice part about NumPy is that everything in NumPy is about these entities called arrays, right? So far you have seen lists, right? So you have seen a list of numbers, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now in NumPy terminology, this is called an array, and you would define it something like this, right? And you can print this and see. It's very similar to Python lists, but it has a technical name called an array. Okay, so you can also define another array, let's say 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Okay, I'll just print these two, and so I'll ask you one basic question. So can someone tell me, if you have those who don't know NumPy, right? I don't want answers from those who already know this NumPy business. So let's say you have a list P and you have a list Q, and you want to sum these two lists. You want to do element wise sum. So can you tell me one function to do it?
For list, we can use for loop.
Element wise, as in like 11, 22, 33, like that.
10 plus 1, yeah, 20 plus 2, 30 plus
33, 44, and 55.
Yeah, that how do I write a function? So I want to do
Or
wise
I
sum.
range.
So using for loop.
For loop we can use.
Okay, so say the size of the list is length of P, and I do the usual, and I define a new list R, right, to store these sums. So R equal to, for I in range of size, P of I plus Q of I, that is my ith element in R also, right? So I just append this and I return R, correct? So if I now call this function on these two lists, else sum list sum of P comma Q, I get the correct answer, right? So this is standard function that you all know. Now we come to NumPy and we see why it's so useful. So let's call P, I'll call it small p, as a NumPy array. It's just a list that you put inside this NumPy array. Okay, so the interesting thing is if you want to sum these two element wise in NumPy, you can very simply do it this way, right? So if you see what R is, that is what R is. Okay, so this is just the starting of the possibilities with NumPy and what it can do to you. So why is this useful? Can someone tell me why this might be useful, in which context it might be useful?
For all the
Calculation, sir.
numerical problems?
Yeah,
Very
in any,
we don't know the length.
yeah, so in any kind of
Matrices.
yeah, matrices, vectors, all your max 2 starts to, maybe not starts to, but max 2, whatever you have been doing with matrices, vectors. So these are, this is what, this is just vector addition, right? This is P is a vector, Q is a vector of length 5. And you're just adding them, right? So adding two vectors is nothing but element wise addition. So if you only knew Python lists, then you would have added the two vectors this way, right? You would have first treated them as lists, and then you would have looped through them, and then you would have done this kind of a function and then obtained the output. But with NumPy, you don't need to do all that. You can just treat them as vectors and do the computation. Okay, so this is the first utility. Once you have NumPy, you can do so many things with it, and that brings us to a plotting library. So how do you plot? Okay, so here I'll just make use of one method, right? Again, we are using the terminology of methods because you can in some sense treat NumPy as a class, and it offers this method called linspace. Okay, what does linspace do? You don't need to remember any of this because anyway will not be testing you on all this. Okay, so it returns evenly spaced numbers between a range, right? So between 0 and 1, return 10 points that are evenly spaced. That's what I'm asking it to do. So let me say 9. It's 11. Okay, that's much better. So between 0 and 1, now I have 11 evenly spaced points, right? So there are 11 numbers here, as you can see, and they're all evenly spaced. The distance between consecutive points is 0.1. So this is what linspace does to me. Now I can make this even bigger. I can say 100. And then what it will do is it will evenly space 100 points in this interval 0, 1, and it will return it to me as an array. Okay, so why is this useful? It's useful for the following reasons. Let's say I want to have evenly spaced points in the interval -1 to 1, and I want to define this function y equal to x square, right? NumPy allows us to do all these things. We can just say x square, right? Just like x plus y that we saw here, p plus q. If I do x square, it will do element y square. So I'll just take a smaller list and explain that. So notice what happens. This is 0, 0.1 square, 0.2 square, 0.3 square, and so on. Right? It has done element wise raising of that vector to the power 2. Okay, so if I do all this and if I try to plot, okay, so I get hold of a parabola, right? So this is how simple plotting is with Python, right? It's just 5 lines of code, I mean 4 lines of code.
Sir, in line number 2, sir.
Yeah.
Hello. Sir, in line number 2, it creates 11 elements, right? And end values included. -1 and +1 are also included. So total put together it creates 11 elements, right?
Yeah.
It is not like range that last value is not included.
Yeah. So let's just check that once just to be safe.
Yeah, I counted that at that point of time.
Oh, yeah.
So
Then
just-
it should be both endpoints, right? So in
anyhow
the-
you can cross check.
yeah. So other utility of this thing is you can ask for help. So this, if you use this question mark followed by the name of the method, it will give you the help here. See, start point and stop point, return evenly spaced numbers. That is, so the endpoint of the interval can be optionally excluded, which means I think it includes the endpoint.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
So
okay.
let me know. Yeah, let me know. Increase the. So one thing that you would have all observed is, let me remove this. So do you all see this is very jagged, kind of not smooth? So this is not really a parabola, right? It's just two, 3, 4 straight lines linked together. Do you see that?
Yes.
So the way to avoid that is to consider a lot more points when you are trying to draw a curve. Right? So the more points that you choose, the smoother your curve will be. Okay, so this is a very brief introduction to plotting. So you can do so many things from this stage, right? So I can, for example, define my axis. So what is my x-axis? So my x-axis I am saying is just x, right? And my y-axis is say y. So okay, x label, not x-axis. So the label for my x-axis, as you see, is x that has come up, and label for y-axis is y. And now I can do few more changes. Right? I can add a title to my graph. I can say this is a parabola, right? So that will come up here, parabola y x. Okay, even more interesting things that you could do is, you could plot multiple curves on the same graph, right? So for example, I define a z equal to say 1 minus x square, and I plot x comma z, right? So you can do multiple plots on the same graph, right? And in the case you have multiple plots, if you might want to label them, right? So you might want to label these graphs, in which case whenever you plot, you should also add say some kind of a label to it, right? I can say this is convex and this is concave parabola, right? And once I do that, I also add a legend, right? Right. So now I have this convex, I have this concave, and this legend gets added. Okay, so these are some very basic things that you must be able to do with Matplotlib and NumPy before you start taking diploma courses. Okay, so
then out of curiosity, I'm asking this question, sir.
Yeah.
As these libraries will be taught in details in diploma courses, so what proportion of Python course has been covered in this module? Like whether we are going to have one more module on Python in diploma courses, or Python is like done?
No, Python is.
I'm not talking with respect to libraries. I know that there are n number of libraries. I'm talking with respect to syntax and other.
So the basic syntax is done, right? So whatever introduction to Python that is presented in this course, that is all you will get even in upcoming terms. And most of the courses will not require more than this, right? Now it's all you will turn to libraries, and that is the way path you will take. But in modern application development and similar courses, right, you will naturally encounter much more Python. So it's not just libraries, but you will also learn new Python constructs there.
Okay.
PDSC is Python only, right? Means PDSC uses Python.
It uses Python, but the focus there is not so much on Python. It is more on algorithms, efficiency, and all that.
And sir.
Yeah.
And continue on this, like, what is mean like the Python projects are like for if you want to give for interviews on the Python? So do we need to learn more on this, sir? Is it so whatever they taught into this course? Is it okay?
Yeah. See, what is taught here is to get you started with Python, and from here it's like up to you to expand and look for projects, try certain things on your own. That will get you prepared for interviews.
And what are the projects are like for the Python? Like, what can you name some of those?
See, this will be taken care of in MAD1, right? So MAD1 is this modern application development one. Their course project is a part of the course. You'll be developing a web app in Python.
Okay.
So that time you'll get an idea of what a full-blown Python project is.
Okay. Okay.
In application development, we'll study advanced Python, right?
We will not, I won't say advanced Python, but the Python that is used there will be significantly more complex than this.
So if you are giving for the like in Python for the beginners, so the weightage will be like more on like in the data structure side, sir, like the introduction is sufficient, and sir.
For what?
For to get the to give for beginners in the Python for jobs, sir. So when we need to like focus like more on like data structures, sir, or algorithms.
See, with Python alone, we can't go anywhere, right? So with Python alone, you can't sit for a job interview.
Okay, sir.
You need to have some companion skills, right? See, Python is just like knowing English, right? I mean, with just English, you can't go. You can't apply for interviews, right? You have to use Python to do something. So you will typically be sitting in a data science interview. Then you need to know data science, where Python is one of the components. That's why it is there in the foundational level.
Yes. Since sir has mentioned in one of the lectures in like week 5 or week 4, like is more than enough, like up to week 4, 5. So one can can you go for like the Python interviews? He told me that there's a Python literature. He told words. So that's why I was asking, like, is it sufficient? Like we can go for like jobs with this course.
Yeah, but what job, right? So that is the big question. So,
yeah, domain into like, even if you're going for in the data analysis side, or like into the backend side, backend developer. So these are like enough, sir, on this one?
No, I'm afraid no. See, sir, Professor Sudarshan told in a different context, right? See,
okay.
what he told is true. I mean, I will also repeat what he told. So what he told is, with this, enough Python to, more than this, you won't use Python. So list, dictionary, set, tuple, functions, classes. So if you know that, then yes, it is enough to, it's a core Python. So core Python is whatever we have covered now. But
advanced Python.
No, that not even advanced Python, right? Where do you use it? So if you want to apply for a backend developer role, then you need to know some backend development, right? Which will not be covered in this course. It will be covered in application development course. So until you see, you need to know at least something of those things before you can appear for the interviews, right? So that is the whole point of the diploma, right? So the diploma program,
yes, sir,
is the foundation. The foundation that we provide is only a foundation. So it's very essential, but you can't stop at the foundation, and that alone will not be enough, is what I'm saying.
Okay. Even for the data analysis also, like we can go now, sir.
No, even for data analysis, it's not enough, right? Because data
Like-
analysis is not Python. Data analysis is
more of like
so
with
much more than Python.
okay. Like into the jobs of data cleaning and data wrangling, all those roles.
Sir, could you please explain the concept of super?
Yeah, so I think, yeah, we'll have to get back to classes, objects. We'll discuss this thing later. Okay, so it was a small detour. So this is regarding what? NumPy and Matplotlib. So we'll just, so what all things I had, I think we covered. Collab, cell code, markdown, plotting simple functions we have covered. So inheritance alone, super we will discuss, and then so the idea of super is do we have any subclasses here? Okay, so we have a product class, and we have a book which is a subclass of product. So many things, so many functions, I don't think we need. So it's too tough to track. So let's change. Okay, so is this visible? See, we have a product class. So product is having a title and a price as attributes, and one method called, two methods, init anyway, you know. Print info is printing the title and the price of the book, of the product. So book is one type of product, right? So book is derived from product, or it's a child of product. So the idea of super is it is something that refers to the parent of the child class. So super points to the parent. Is that clear? Okay, I hope it is clear. Anyone else having any other questions?
I have a doubt related to week 9, sir.
Okay.
May I ask?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sir, when I'm writing a line of code like f dot readlines parenthesis dot strip parenthesis, I'm assigning the value to s, I'm getting an error, sir.
Yeah, because you cannot call if dot read lines is not a string, right? It is a list.
Okay. So if it is a list of string, right?
Yeah, but it is a list.
String. No,
yeah,
no,
it is
I'm
a
saying it is a list. It is a list of strings. Means elements are strings, right?
Yeah.
So if I have to strip each and every element of this list, so how should I proceed? Should I use for loop? Should I apply for loop?
Yeah, usual for loop will work.
So if I apply for loop and if I am then using the strip function, so whether then that S will become list of list, right? In that case, it will become list of lists.
I don't think so. See, you are opening a file, some file, and then you are saying f dot read lines.
S equal to f dot read lines. S equal to S assignment operator f dot read lines. So S will be a list, right? And
Yeah.
each element of the S will be a string. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now if I have to strip each element, then I will use the function strip, right? Like can we proceed, sir? Like we can write S1. Yeah, sorry, for I in range of.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
So I will just update it here itself.
So now each element which was a string earlier, so now that will become a list itself. So
No, I am stripping, right? I am not splitting.
okay, I'm stripping only. Okay, that yes. And say for example, if I use that operator also, that function also, what called split.
Then it will become list of list. Yeah.
Then it will become list of lists, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So every time if I have to strip a line, then I have to use for loop, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Sir?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a
So
doubt.
here, just sorry. So
Yeah,
here is of I dot strip. So if you don't include split, which means that we have only knocked off the backslash in at the end of each of
Yeah.
the items, right? But
Yeah.
the list will be the same.
Yeah.
And if you're including split, then we are apart from basically list of ones.
Yeah.
And only strip will have the list retained without the backlash in, and with split will have list of lists, right? Correct, sir?
Yeah. If you strip, you will remove the new lines, and then if you split, you will have a you'll be splitting the lines by comma.
Okay.
Sir, are we going to discuss the GRPS?
No, not. Generally, we don't, right? We don't discuss the. Okay, so I think that is all. If there are no other questions, I think we can close the session.
Sir, I have doubt like week 9 GRP have the problem with some code. Is it? Can I ask, sir? Like.
Yeah. Its deadline is over, right?
Yeah, deadline is over. Sir. So can I share my screen, sir? So
You can paste the code and I will copy it.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Sir, I too have a doubt in week 9 GRPA 3.
Okay.
I'll just post it on the chat.
Sir, I posted into the chat, sir. So can you tell me where I'm going wrong, sir? It's a GRP2.
GRPA2. How can you return subset So returning immediately, right? After, see, every element in F1 has to be in F2, right?
Yes. If ith element they mentioned like at least one or all have to be equal.
No, all of them have to be equal.
Okay. So in such cases, the case has been like test case is paused for this one, but not for no relation.
For no relation, it is showing an error every time.
Yeah, no relation has showing none. It's
None, yes.
It's
None.
giving the output as a none. But the rest of the two got paused, sir.
No relation is showing none. Huh?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
All right, we have expected output as no relation. Then it means it's not hitting any test case. Then
Where I'm going wrong, sir?
see, it is not subset, right? I mean, here itself, I am not sure if this is right.
Okay.
See, you should return subset only if every line is in one file is present in another file, right?
But sir, he's taking for loop, no, sir. So all line will get checked.
No. Only moment first return executes, you will terminate from the
yes.
function.
Okay.
Yes, here it is.
Right. So you are checking if line F1 is first. This is line F1 will be first line, right? For in file 1.
Yes, sir.
You are checking if line F1 is equal to first line of line F2. If that is true, then you return subset, which is not the case, right?
So let us take it outside the loop, no, sir. Let us take it outside the loop, return subset.
Okay,
we are checking each line, no, sir. Like each line, if they are equal, the as it mentioned in the question, like ith of F1 is must be equal to like ith of F2.
But you have to return after the for loop.
After the for loop, yes.
You cannot return when the first line itself is same.
Okay, okay. We need to check for all the lines.
Yeah, every line you have to check and then only you have to arrive at the decision. That's why it's better to say if it is not equal to line F2, then you can say some flag equal to false, and then you can break out of it. And then outside you can check if flag, then return subset, something like that. So something along those lines.
Okay. Okay.
So even in this case also, if he takes a return outside the for loop, then it serves the purpose, no?
And outside for loop, yeah, I'm not sure. Kind slightly tricky. We need to look into it a little more deeply, right? Because there are like two nested loops. Within that, there's one if condition. So if you can come up with the complete code, then that might be a better point of discussion.
So this code, sir, I need to like more. It's not.
Yeah, I mean, you can correct this and then we can discuss how to.
Okay.
I think we can now work on it.
Okay, sir. I'll do on this.
Yeah. All right. Anything
So
else?
can you just check my code for GRPA3? Actually, I have used pandas. 3 out of 7 private cases were passed, but I don't know what the rest of the cases were.
See, there's a problem with using pandas or numpy. So we always encourage you to use only native file handling.
Okay.
His code is right, but it's not working on the editor.
Correct. So please, for the exam, please note that don't use numpy or pandas, right? Only use. I will maybe mention it in the exam question also. Please use only native file handling.
Okay, sir, but can you just check the program whether it is sufficiently? I mean, is it good enough, or it actually passed all the public cases? It just passed only 3 out of 7 private cases.
Okay, maybe it is correct. I am not a big pandas not someone who is very familiar with pandas. So what you're doing, you're importing, you're reading CSV, you're seeing if goals countries, this country. Then you are filtering this by country and then summing it across the goals axis. It seems to be correct, yeah.
Okay.
There seems to be nothing wrong with this code, but please, so if something like this comes up, right, tag one of us and post it on Discord. We could have clarified this long time back.
Oh, no, sir. It just happened yesterday only, no? So the deadline was just yesterday, so I looked it up only today.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I mean, we could have clarified it long time back if you had posted that pandas and numpy are.
Oh, okay.
Sir, might be a very trivial question, sir. Like in file handling, we have dealt with mainly text file, right?
Yeah.
So can we deal with other files also, like Excel or PPT file?
Not Excel. You can. There is one library called XLRD in Python. So Python XLRD. Okay, so XLRD is a.
There is one is XLRD and another is OpenPyXL. Actually, XLRD works for the Excel version before till 2007, and post that you need to have OpenPyXL.
Oh, okay, okay. So see, there are these libraries, but typically you will mostly be dealing with CSVs, and for CSVs you can use either the methods that we have taught, or there is a Python library itself called CSV. So there is one, you can do import CSV and parse CSV by files.
Okay, we can deal with these files also, right?
Yeah, you can deal with Excel, you can deal with CSVs, you can deal even with images. For images, there are separate libraries. So there is one library called OpenCV for.
So if I have kept my file on desktop or any other C or D drive, then how to fetch those files, sir?
How to
fetch? How to get those files? Like we write the first line of command that f equal to open, right? Open,
yeah.
Then we pass argument file name and then mode, like the read mode or write mode or append mode, right?
Yeah, so you need to specify the full path of the file. Okay, so there is, I mean, what OS do you use? Windows?
Yes.
Okay, so for Windows, there is a different way of writing the file path, but say if you are in something like Linux, right? So I'm on a this is a Linux interface, right? So
and for Windows,
if you have a file within several folders, right? So folder 1, and within folder 1 you have, say, folder 2, and inside folder 2 you have file. Okay, so if you have some kind of a structure like this, and I want to access this kind of file in this structure, right? I have to do open folder 1 / folder 2 / file.txt in read mode. So I have to give the full path, or if not the full path, from wherever you're running the code, right? If you're running the code from outside folder 1, then you have to follow this kind of a naming system. Okay, in Windows it will be like something like this. So it will be //
backslash. Okay.
And it will be like, say, D programming files / folder 1 folder 2. So if you want to avoid all this, I mean, there is another way that's a nice. There is something called OS, right? So OS is another library. So I don't know exact commands for OS.
os.chtir.
OS that is to change directory, right?
Yes, sir.
So there is OS dot get CWD or something, right? Get current working directory.
No underscore.
No underscore. Okay, so this, if you notice, is the command. So command is os.getCWD, that will give you the current path, right? And then Python has this facility to join paths, right? So I think you can do something like, you can join the current path, okay, with folder 1.
Then
That will give you this.
Then I can get any word file, right? Wherever I have kept it.
Wherever you are, yeah. So you don't. So this is nice thing about this is OS agnostic, meaning whether you are on Windows or on Linux, the way to do it would be current working directory is os.getCWD, and then let's say it is inside folder 1 in the current directory. So all that you need to do is the file path is os.path.join the current working directory, comma folder underscore 1. And then the final step is open file path comma read. Okay, so probably we should teach all these things in the Python course, because these are the things you will get, you'll use more frequently, right? How to yeah. Anyway, so I think that's it. So
thank you, sir.
yeah,
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. So the last questions are like into the marks in the graded assignments. So if few test cases are passed, so will be given those marks, or will completely it's not given to the whole marks?
No, partial test cases you get marks.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Thanks for joining.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Sunday முடிஞ்சு போச்சுங்க. அப்ப சாயங்காலம் போறோமா? அப்ப இவனோட ரிசப்ஷன் சாயங்காலம் போறோமா? ஆரம்பிச்சுதான் நினைக்கிறேன்.